This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour in the Middle East. Israeli soccer fans attending a game in Amsterdam where they were violently attacked and threatened by a giant mob of Muslim immigrants armed with knives and clubs as they left the event. CBN News Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more from Jerusalem.
Israeli soccer fans in Amsterdam to watch a game were violently attacked and threatened by a giant mob of Muslim immigrants armed with knives and clubs as they left the event. The Israeli government is sending flights to rescue Israelis who are said to be hiding in their hotels after the brutal attacks. Israeli media and social media exploded with coverage and outrage about the attacks, which are being called a pogrom, an organized massacre of an ethnic group, like the Nazis carried out against the Jews in the 1930s. Thursday's attack happened just days before the 86th anniversary of Kristallnacht, when the Nazis launched multiple pogroms against Jews. Prime Minister Netanyahu says he views with utmost gravity the planned anti-Semitic attack against Israeli citizens and requested that security be increased for the Dutch Jewish community. He spoke with the Dutch Prime Minister, who posted on X, calling the attack completely unacceptable anti-Semitic attacks on Israelis. Some media reports say there were signs of tension even before the attack. The Times of Israel reports video on social media showed Israelis chanting against Arabs and Palestinians in the city and pulling down a Palestinian flag, apparently before the violence, and that pro-Palestinian anti-Israel activists claimed that Israeli fans were the first to harass and engage in violence. Newly appointed Foreign Minister Gideon Saar is traveling to the Netherlands to handle the crisis. Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell says many are hospitalized.
I call on the Dutch government to arrest and prosecute all those involved, and we have information from social media leading to those radical Islamists who went hunting for Jews.
She challenged Europe to take action.
I call on Europe and the world to act more aggressively to combat anti-Semitism. This is your responsibility. Israeli Jews being attacked by a violent mob in the heart of Europe is something no one should stand. If we fail to act, it will only get worse.
And the National Security Council issued a new warning to Israelis and Jews in the Netherlands to avoid movements in the street and lock yourself in hotel rooms. The externalization of Israeli and Jewish symbols must be avoided. The latest violence has once again focused Israeli fears on the rising tide of international anti-Semitism. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Wow, thanks, Julie. Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. Chris, this is hard to watch. You feel like you're watching a World War II movie or something. Tell us, what memories are these attacks, these images in Amsterdam evoking in Israelis and the Jewish people right now?
Yeah, certainly memories of what happened in the 1930s in Germany. The name that comes up, the word is called pogrom. It's really a chilling word in Jewish history. It comes from pogroms or attacks on Jews in Russia in the 19th and 20th century. That's when Jews were murdered, raped, looted. They stole their property simply because they were Jews. And also Kristallnacht that Julie reported in her story. That actually, the anniversary is tomorrow and Sunday. That was in 1938. They call it Kristallnacht. That's German for Night of the Broken Glass, where throughout Germany, Austria, parts of Czechoslovakia, there was organized violence, but it was under the guise of being spontaneous by the SS. They destroyed hundreds of synagogues, shattered about 7,500 Jewish-owned businesses. Many were injured, at least 90 murdered, but expected that many more had been murdered. And at that time, Wendy, they arrested up to 30,000 Jewish men. That was really the beginning of a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism that led to the final solution of the Holocaust. So these are some of the things that these memories evoke in the Jewish people and here in Israel.
Chris, what does this tell us about the situation for Jews in Europe right now?
It's a very dangerous situation, Wendy, in many parts of Europe. Just a couple of months ago, we interviewed a member of Belgium's parliament, and he gave a sobering message about the plight of European Jewry. He said there's open anti-Semitism in the media. Online people, he says, are not ashamed to say that the Jews are responsible for all the evils of the world. He also made the point that Iran presents a clear and present danger to European Jews. He says that Iran is trying to attack Jewish sites around the world, around Europe, looking for a weak spot in its war against Israel. And some people are reporting that last night's attack, that Iran was behind that. But also there's radical Muslims in European communities all throughout Europe. A couple of years ago, we were in Belgium. There was one neighborhood that we were told not to go because it was too dangerous for anybody who was not a Muslim. And this member of parliament was calling on other members of parliaments around Europe to really protect Jewish communities, just like the deputy foreign minister did in Julie's report.
Chris, now that former President Trump is now President-elect Trump, do you think this will have any kind of impact throughout the Middle East on anti-Semitism?
Wendy, a huge impact just in the last couple of days for moderate Arab nations. It's really kind of a dream. On the other hand, it's really a nightmare for Iran and its proxies. It's going to have a chilling effect, we believe, on Iran's plan to attack Israel that they've been threatening for many, many weeks. But probably a tailwind for Israel in its wars against Hamas and Hezbollah. President Trump says he wants Israel to win decisively and win quickly. So he's going to be helping Israel in that and probably cutting off support to things we've been talking about for a long time, the Palestinian Authority, and especially UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency that's been tied directly to Hamas.
And Chris, you have a great show called Jerusalem Dateline. Tell us what's on tap for this week.
Well, this week we're going to have analysis with Julie Stahl about the pogrom in Amsterdam. We're also going to have a story on the Middle East Summit. It's really a new vision for the Middle East. Also a story on what to do in the war in Gaza after the war, and really a heart-moving story about United Hatzalah. That's United Rescue in English, and what many members in that organization did, risking their own lives to save others on October 7th.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much, as always, for your terrific insights. Stay safe, and, of course, we are praying for you and the team in Israel. God bless. And you can see more from the Middle East on Jerusalem Dateline. That's on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also watch the CBN News Channel on YouTube. Well, back here at home, a fast-moving wildfire known as the Mountain Fire continues to ravage Ventura County in Southern California. Despite the tireless efforts of firefighters, the fire remains only 5% contained. George Thomas has details.
Firefighting teams on the ground and in the air are still battling flames that have been sweeping over Ventura County.
It's like trying to put out a blowtorch with a squirt gun.
The mountain fire broke out early Wednesday morning, fueled by powerful Santa Ana winds. Within 2 days, the blaze had charred over 20,000 acres, and more than 130 structures have been destroyed, including the home of Ventura County resident Dawn DeLon.
First it skipped us and it started burning our neighbor's house past us. We thought we were okay. Evacuated anyway, and today came back and the house was gone.
Authorities are telling people to stay away from the blaze.
I urge everyone to stay out of the areas that are impacted. The fire is still very dangerous. The winds have not completely deceased.
The fire has left many residents in potential danger, including Gregory Bostock, a California Highway Patrol officer who narrowly escaped the flames with his family of 6 in their RV.
And as we were pulling the RV down the driveway, you know, there's such thick smoke we could barely even see the house at that point. And patrol car didn't make it, but hey, that's okay. They're replaceable. People aren't.
Bostock and his family are staying in an Airbnb thanks to their church and their supportive friends who have brought clothes and food.
I miss our house, but it's better that we still have our lives.
Over 800 firefighters are on the front lines, with more expected to join the effort as the fire rages on. Officials stress that the recovery and containment will take time as safety checks are made.
This is a slow process because we have to make sure that the properties are safe. That means the gas lines and the electrical and all our hazards have to be secured before the teams enter onto the properties.
Around 10,000 people northwest of Los Angeles have been forced to evacuate. California's governor has declared a state of emergency as crews continue to work around the clock to control the fast-moving fire. George Thomas, CBN News.
Thanks, George. Our prayers for those folks. Coming up, people with mental illnesses are 16 times more likely to be killed in encounters with police. Find out what certain cities are doing to save lives. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch.
Hi, I'm John Stolnis, host of the CBN News podcast, DC Debrief. Each Friday, get the inside scoop on Washington politics straight from the nation's capital. Because truth matters. Start listening today.
Welcome back to CBN News Watch. People with untreated mental illness are 16 times more likely to be killed during encounters with law enforcement. That's why some cities are now deploying mental health experts to diffuse these situations. Parts of this report from Charlene Aaron are disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised.
They don't have nothing but my babies. I don't know what to do.
This is body camera footage of Sonia Massey and police 16 hours before a gunshot ended her life on July 6th. The day before the deadly encounter in her home, Massey's mother, Donna, called 911 to report her daughter was having a mental health episode.
When's the last time you took your medicine? It's written down last night.
During her call, Donna Massey pleaded with police to not hurt her daughter. The next day, Sonia Massey called 911 to report a prowler. Officer Sean Grayson and his partner responded to the call. After searching outside, the officers entered the home, and the situation escalated. That's when Gracie shot Massey in the head, killing her. He faces multiple charges, including murder, and if convicted, faces a sentence of 45 years to life. Her death evokes painful memories and fear among some in the Black community.
A lot of people like that, like, oh, I feel safe when I'm around the police, or it's okay, the police are here. But sometimes for us, it's like we never know if we are actually safe.
Therapist Dr. Anita Phillips describes this as collective trauma, which can add to the distrust of police.
I had the opportunity to support a young Black woman who struggles with bipolar disorder, and she was experiencing a severe depressive episode, which had left her struggling with suicidal thoughts. I am on text, on the phone, supporting her, and suggested that maybe it might be bad enough that she needed to call 911. And her response was, as much as my suicidal thoughts are tormenting me right now, I'm probably safer if I don't.
Lisa Daly heads Treatment Advocacy Center, a nonprofit that advocates for those with severe mental illness. She points out the increase in people calling 988, the suicide and crisis hotline, since the new numbers launch in 2022.
There have been something like 10.8 million contacts with that system, which is a massive up, and that's been increasing over time.
According to Daly, police interaction with such callers often turn negative.
The likelihood of a person in a mental health crisis being involved in a fatal law enforcement encounter was 16 times higher than it was for people who were not involved in a mental health crisis at the time that they had a law enforcement interaction. So it is a pretty stunning statistic.
Treatment Advocacy Center also notes that many reaching out to police during a mental health crisis may be experiencing something called anosognosia, also called lack of insight. It's a biological condition that prevents a person from perceiving that they have a mental illness.
It's present in anywhere between about 40%, 50% of individuals that have schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. And the important thing to keep in mind in the context of crisis calls is that if a person does not believe that they have an illness, they will respond differently to law enforcement. This particular population is extremely vulnerable when they're in an interaction with law enforcement.
To better understand the problem, Daly's organization has created a specific database to track what she calls preventable tragedies. Research also shows notable racial disparities when it comes to policing and mental health calls.
You do definitely see, there is an increased impact to communities of color for really any kind of law enforcement. A significant factor is like communities of color or marginalized communities may be less likely to get the timely interventions that they need. So they may be in a situation where they're in the community for longer periods of time, not being treated, so that they escalate to crisis. And then once it gets to that crisis point, it's much more likely to result in a really negative outcome.
This, combined with the nation's overall mental health crisis, is leading more cities to enlist skilled health experts for assisting officers in the field. One example is the Support Team Assisted Response Program, also known as STAR, underway in Denver, Colorado. Instead of automatically sending police officers on each 911 call, any request related to mental health distress leads to the dispatch of a paramedic and licensed behavioral health clinician, something that could have meant a different outcome for Massey.
When they get that dispatch, they can go to the scene, trauma-informed care, medical assessment or triage, crisis intervention, de-escalation, transportation as needed, and then connection to different resources or follow-up care.
Despite being able to answer only half of the calls last year due to staffing issues, the program did respond to more than 7,000 calls. Results many believe are still worth expanding across the country. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Still ahead, NCAA basketball is in full swing. We have a preview of the new season and share some good news. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Believe it or not, college basketball season is here. The NCAA men and women tipped off earlier this week, making it a busy time for sports fans. Last year, the men's championship game drew nearly 10 million viewers. And the popularity of women's college basketball, get this, it has never been higher, and let's face it, that was due to Iowa's Caitlin Clark. CBN sports reporter Will Dawson joins us now to tell us what he's watching as the season begins. Will, I have to tell you straight up, I never watched women's basketball, college basketball until last season. Caitlin Clark changed the game, didn't she?
She did, for you and for a lot of other people, Wendy. I think a lot of other people were in the same boat, but wow, how she did revolutionize the women's college basketball game. Well,
let's talk about this new season. What are some storylines we should be paying attention to?
Well, without question, the biggest storyline this year is the UConn Huskies trying to win their third consecutive championship. 1 is difficult, 2 is almost unheard of, 3 is practically impossible. The last team to do that was more than 50 years ago when UCLA was making their crazy run under legendary coach John Wooden. But Dan Hurley, I spoke with back at the Final Four earlier this year, and he's a believer. He's a guy who talked about the power of prayer, talked about reading his Bible, but he's also admittedly very flawed as well. He talked about how winning the second championship he thought would bring some sort of healing to him that it didn't fulfill. And he even in the coming days and weeks after the championship suffered some anxiety and depression. So Coach Hurley is a guy that we're watching. And also UConn, as they try to win that third championship in a row, it's going to be an incredible storyline.
I love it. Well, over on the women's side, the Oklahoma State Cowgirls did some celebrating earlier this week. Tell us about that.
They did. Yeah. Oklahoma State won their second game, 2 consecutive games in a row. They're 2-0. So that's a reason to celebrate. But even more so, Coach J.C. Hoyt there down in Stillwater helped baptize 3 of her players and also a graduate assistant who recently gave their lives to Christ. It's amazing what's happening at Oklahoma State. It's a culture where Coach J.C. will go to war for her players. The players know that, and that's why they play so hard for her. But earlier this week, Macy Heward goes nuclear for 31 points. Macy is the daughter of former Seahawks quarterback Brock Heward. And earlier this year, Lena Girardi, if you know that name Girardi, you know you're a Yankees fan. He won a championship as a catcher with the Yankees and then coached the Yankees to 2 championships. If you're an elite athlete, these guys know they're sending their daughters to Oklahoma State, not just because they'll get great coaching, but because of the Christian culture, the values-based culture. JC Hoyt's doing a tremendous job down there at Oklahoma State. And one more thing about JC, we want to say congratulations to her. She and her husband, Daniel, will welcome their first baby in a few weeks in Stillwater, a little girl. Maybe she's a future cowgirl.
Absolutely. Congratulations to them. And, Will, I love how you guys bring us these great sports stories, but you also bring us the stories of the players, the athletes' spiritual lives, and let us get to know them that way. Nobody else is doing that. CBN Sports is really revolutionary, and I just wanted to give you a shout out for that. Well, how can our viewers get more great sports content?
Yeah, thank you for that, Wendy. Yeah, but we know that these stories are sports stories and people love sports, but ultimately they're God's stories and they give God the glory. And so we want to shine a spotlight on that for our viewers. Even if you're not a sports fan, I think that you'll find them encouraging. You can go to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@CBN Sports, or follow us on Instagram @CBN Sports _. And you will not be disappointed in the kind of things that our team is cranking out content all the time. So go follow us, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy it.
All right. I'm following you. Will Dawson, sports reporter
Thanks,
for CBN
Wendy.
News. Thank you so much. God bless. We'll be right back.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
A fun run in honor of National Adoption Month. The winner of an inaugural 5K 1-mile run for an Arkansas nonprofit had an important message to share. Organized by Project Zero and the Arkansas Division of Children and Family Services, hundreds of runners participated in the Chasing Zero run in Little Rock. The race aimed at raising awareness for kids awaiting adoption. A 14-year-old named Emma came in first place. Her mom revealed that Emma was adopted from foster care. A detail Project Zero says affirms that God is at work. No doubt. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online at CBN News. Tell us what you think about the stories you've seen. Email us at newswatch@cbn.com. Have a great Friday.